Right guys, back again. We are just going to take a look at this BMW System, oh grief, is it the 6? I can't remember. It's the latest BMW helmet. Reasonably cheap actually. I bought this from BMW in Northampton. I can't remember the price, but it was only a few £100 I think. The Sharp rating for it is exactly the same as the C3 Pro that I've already got. Same problems. It's not as good as it could be on the side impact tests. Obviously it meets and exceeds every specification or legislation going, but the Sharp tests pointed out a small slight weakness at the side protection in their tests. Now the reason I bought this is because back in November when I passed my advanced rider's test with the IAM, I wanted to do something useful with that, so I decided to apply to be a blood biker with a charity called Serve OBN, and they cover, you know, my area, which is Northamptonshire, Buckinghamshire, but Oxfordshire. Anyway, it's just based all around the John Radcliffe Hospital and their blood bank. We would, you know, transport blood and samples between there and the various hospitals. Anyway, so I then spent the next 5 months going through all of their health and safety training, and got through that in the end in, when was it? I think at the end of March, beginning of April, I got the certificate to say I'd passed that. End of April, during April and beginning of May, I was doing some runs with the charity's marked bikes. They use Yamaha FJR 1300s, and they also had a couple of marked cars as well. Dacia Sandero? Can't remember, but I had that over the bank holiday weekend. Had it for 4 or 5 days. Did a couple of runs in it, and we'll go over that a bit more in a while. But I wanted obviously a bright helmet. The Schuberth C3 Pro, if you've ever watched any of my previous videos, it has the fluorescent yellow, not as bright as this, but it also has the European flags all over it and a map. So it's not quite as visible as this one. I mean, you can see this from 5 miles away. I've also added some reflective tape around the side. But what I wanted was a flip front helmet that would actually flip the front easily, because the Schuberth is a nightmare. You can open it, but you try closing it with one hand, it's virtually impossible. So this is simple one-handed option. You've got the red catch here, and you pull that and it lifts up into the open position. But the really good thing is you can just shut it with one hand. Clicks in place. There's absolutely no guessing whether it's closed or not. Like the Schuberth, you would have to press and fiddle and lift up one side to see if it had engaged properly. So then this is what I wanted this for. I expected to be using this for the blood bikes, and I thought it would be obviously very helpful to have a flip front. It turns out that we had to take helmets off as we went into any of the, well, certainly we had to take helmets off at the John Radcliffe Hospital to collect the blood, which is fair enough. No, it's a pain in the backside because you've got to undo everything, undo the camera, etc., which we'll also get to in a minute. So yeah, great flip front on this. Can't fault that. The visor is, as usual, the standard pin lock visor. Strangely, you've got multiple positions, no issues there, and it stays in those positions, and you shut it like that, but there is no pushing down to click this closed like the Schuberth. This is just down and closed, and that's it. Occasionally it will need a push on either side, inconvenient but not a major problem. There you see there. So maybe a push and lock close would be a good idea, but it's not caused me any problems in practice. I've also found that the seal at the top is very good. When it's raining, really nothing will come down there at all. The seal is quite good all the way round. So yeah, another important thing, when it's open and it's raining, if you like a bit of airflow like I do, this somehow seems to let the water run round the sides and then down the back rather than drip down and come down the inside of the visor. Again, the shoe berth seemed to get wet on the inside if it was open in any way whatsoever, and I do like a bit of airflow through the visor. Talking of airflow, simple slider at the top here. Back is open as far as I recall. The issue is this vent at the front. If I just tilt this down, simple operation, but in the on position it creates a lot of wind noise, which is quite surprising. This often gets shut when you're pushing around with the visor. This is it's very simple to close, and I'm often riding along thinking, well, it's getting a bit hot in here, and then I realise that this actually isn't open because I've just caught it and knocked it shut. So do expect, I would say, a significant amount of wind noise when that is open, but there is a nice amount of airflow coming through this. I've taken the logo off the back because I didn't want that on there. The other thing I had fitted, as you can see, is the BMW speakers and the intercom. Well, this is what caught me out actually. On the shoe berth, I bought their intercom system, and it's obviously bike to bike. I didn't read too much up on this. I just knew I wanted an intercom on this, so I got them to fit this down at the dealership, and I had absolutely no idea that this is not bike to bike. This is purely rider to passenger, and for comms for your phone and sat nav, and for that purpose it works great. The comms side of things, for the sat nav, it's probably clearer than the shoe berth. I think the speakers are perhaps better quality. This is expensive, probably 300. I think it was. I know it was more than the helmet. I got them to fit it. They did it free of charge in that price, and it's absolutely fine. The charging point just tucks down and under in here. It's a simple USB charge. Again, I would say that this lasts longer than the shoe berth C3 Pro on a charge, and the sound is, I think, clearer. Flip down visor is here. You've got the smoked visor, again works very well on this sliding mechanism. Occasionally I find the helmet is not quite on my head properly, and my nose will just hit on here, but a slight tweak of the helmet position and it sits then absolutely fine. Nice padding. This fits my shape of head absolutely perfectly. No problems with that at all. It's reasonably quiet. It's not particularly heavy. Again, I think comparable with the C3 Pro on the sound levels and the padding. But the main selling point for me was a proper working flip front, and there's never ever any issues as to whether that is shut or not. It either is or it isn't. There's never any concerns about is one side closed. You can ride this in the open position. I've done that occasionally as I've pulled up the last 100 yards just to get some air on a really hot day, as I've pulled up here or at the destination. I would never normally ride with that open, you've just lost half your protection if you do have any sort of accident. So yeah, thoroughly recommend this. I don't wear the Schuberth C3 Pro at all now. Since I bought this, I have used this exclusively. Probably worth me trying the C3 Pro again for a test run, but just to see what differences are. Now I've got completely used to this one, but the fluorescent yellow, you just don't get people pulling out in front of you. Since I've marked the screen, I have not had a single person pull out in front of me, unless they are the idiots that have not even looked. And I had this twice a couple of weeks ago. Somebody pulled out of a side road and pulled onto a roundabout, and they didn't physically turn their head to look. They just pulled out in front of me, and fortunately I managed to have a word with both of them, and they were absolutely fine and apologised. There's nothing you can do to protect yourself against that sort of thing, apart from being at the right speed and the right position, and having time to react to things like that. But that's all down to the training. Anyway, so yes, bought this for the blood biking, and it was fine for that. I have the dash cam fitted on the side, and I was very happy doing the blood biking. I thought that was a really, really worthwhile cause. Yes, it's all done on a voluntary basis. You have to pay for the jackets that you require, and your ID cards, and everything else. But even so, someone's got to do it, and I thought that would be a good thing to do. In the induction meeting, I specifically asked about the use of dash cams. Obviously there may be some privacy issues using them, although absolutely anybody can go into a hospital and use their camera to film. And I was told that yes, you certainly may use helmet cams, but you must turn them off before you enter the hospital buildings, and that's perfectly okay. I want to be able to use the helmet cam, dash cam when I'm driving, and I certainly want to use it as I'm going through a hospital A&E car park at midnight with drunks and idiots, and I'm riding what looks like a police motorbike with all the markings, blue lights, etc. You need the protection of a dash cam or helmet cam there. So yeah, after I asked at the induction meeting, that was confirmed as not a problem, and I just carried on, in that manner. When I had the marked car over the May bank holiday, I noticed that it's got the Garmin 595 sat nav, the same that we used on the bikes, mounted on the dashboard, but strangely no dash cam. And these days you would think a dash cam is pretty much a required standard piece of equipment, especially if you're working, doing it if it's a business. Or look, I've been using dash cams for years and years. I really think they are a must, and it should almost be mandatory on cars and bikes. The protection they offer you in any sort of incident is, well, you can't question it, can you? I've got front and rear dash cams on the car, and I've got front and rear cameras on the bike. And if there is ever any incident, I've got absolute proof as to what happened, whether I cocked up or somebody else did. You've got it all there. Anyway, so as I had the charities 4x4, marked 4x4 for that weekend, I had a phone call from one of the, I can't remember what his position was, but it doesn't matter, transport manager, whatever it was, and I just happened to mention, not to worry, I've used my own, but why is there no dash cam fitted to the vehicles? And I was told, oh no, you're not allowed to use a dash cam in the charities' vehicles. I said, well, why on earth not? You've got to be kidding these days. I was told that there's two reasons. One, it's for my safety, because in an incident I may be injured by the dash cam. The tiny little dash cam that's up at the top of the screen somewhere, and for privacy reasons they didn't want us filming anything for privacy reasons. So at that point I said, well, in that case I won't be able to drive the charity's own vehicles, cars, because I refuse to be put in a position of driving with no dash cam. That makes no sense at all. After all, if I'm in any sort of incident and I can't prove who's at fault, well, whose insurance is going to be screwed up the next time it comes up for renewal? Well, it'll be mine, because I will have to say, even if I was driving on their insurance, that I have had an incident or an accident, and I won't be able to prove that I was blameless, if I indeed was, because there will be no footage. It is a ridiculous position to put a volunteer in. Anyway, this caused a bit of a stink, I think, and the trustees met over the next few days to just clarify the position on dash cams and helmet cams, and after a couple of days they sent out a policy update, and it simply said that you may not use dash cams in the vehicles, you may not fit anything to the bikes, which is fair enough, and if you use a helmet cam you must turn that off on public roads before you enter any part of the hospital grounds. And at that stage I had to quit after all that training, and I absolutely loved doing that. I have to say it's a fantastic and worthwhile cause, but they were then forcing me to stop outside the hospital, turn off, or in my case disconnect the camera, either wait till the 5-minute period was up so it turns itself off, or I have to physically turn the camera off. There's a lot of faffing around, bearing in mind you're carrying urgent blood or samples or notes or whatever it is we were carrying, and then I've got to negotiate the hospital grounds, often at night, because they're the hours we cover or covered. It was night times Monday to Friday and all day Saturday and Sunday. So you'd very often be turning up into a car park where you've got drunks in A&E, you've got upset people reversing cars out of car parking spaces because of whatever disaster's just happened for them, and you're driving around on a very vulnerable bike with absolutely no proof if you've having any sort of, if you've had any incident. Sorry. So yeah, totally unacceptable, and so far behind the times, it's ridiculous. I don't think, and I've said this in a letter to the charity, I don't know how many people it got passed to, probably not many. I was probably a pain in their backside from day one, because it was a very, very long and slow process to go through all of their health and safety things. 5 months it took, and of course at the start there was never any indication that things would take that long, and it was very frustrating, but ultimately worth it. But to tell a volunteer, and don't forget we're doing this all for free, it's our time that we're using up, and there's no getting away from it. You are at a significant risk riding a bike, far more than you are in a car, but we do it anyway. So to tell me I can't use a dash cam, helmet cam on hospital grounds as I'm going about my business, getting to wherever it is I'm going on those grounds, was just totally unacceptable. And as I said to them, and I think I just said a minute ago, I don't believe they've got the riders' best interests at heart there. I know there's health and safety, but that is a step too far, and they need to modify that policy as soon as possible. I would have been doing that for years now, had a lot of time to give to them, but I'm sure they've got plenty of other volunteers who frankly don't give a toss about helmet cams, dash cams, or anything else, and so they're not bothered about one person, but I think they probably should be. and this won't be an issue until the first incident, and when that volunteer realises that next year he's got to tell his insurance company, car and bike insurance companies, that yeah, he's been in an incident, it wasn't his fault, but the charity wouldn't let him film it, so he's got no proof. Utter madness. So anyway, that's why this helmet came about. It was just for the blood bike use, but I now use it all the time because of the flip front and the great colour. I know a lot of you guys are not impressed with all the fluorescent markings on the bike, but yeah, safety is the number one thing for me. I'm not interested in looking cool or anything else. I need to get home at the end of every ride out, simple as that, and this helps. So yeah, I can recommend the helmet. As I say, it was a very, very good price. If you don't need bike-to-bike intercoms and you want something that, you know, fits this perfectly, it's obviously designed for this helmet by BMW. It's part of it almost. It does look good. It's very easy to operate. There's only 3 buttons. Charging lights on the side here, and you know, on is green, but it will show you the charge level as well. And yeah, it's great. I thoroughly recommend that. A little bit of wind noise from the front, but the other features over the shoe berth make it a good buy for me. Anyway, there we go. Blood biking rant. Very disappointed in not doing that anymore. I was going to go down to the IAM in Northampton today and just have a little chat about being an observer. Unfortunately, it was wet this morning and I just couldn't be bothered going out in the rain early in the morning. So yeah, hopefully we'll pop down there next Sunday, have a chat about being an observer. Again, if there's any issues with recording any of that, that will be the end of that idea, and that will be the end of anything you know, to do with the bike. Then it'll just be a matter of riding it around. You know, as a civilian, there's not much you can do, you know, to advance things or do something useful with that advanced qualification. But hey, there you go. Some outdated rules can ruin things, unfortunately. Hopefully they'll get themselves sorted out and review that policy, because I think it's a bad one. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you later.